I'm not familiar with him. Peels. No, I know Mr. His principal. Good morning. Honorable Minister of Education and Youth, Mrs. Fayville Williams, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Education, Mrs. Maureen Dwyer, Dr. Adrian Stokes, Chairman of the Education Transformation Oversight Committee, and other members of the committee, Dr. Casson Troop, Chief Education Officer, and all members of the Executive Management Team, Dr. Faith Morrison Alexander, Chief Education Transformation Officer in the Transformation in Education Project. Principals, Mr. Laurel James, Vice Principal at Clancarthy High School, Mr. Kevin Jones, Principal at Mona High, Mr. Dave Myrie, Principal at Kingston College, and Mr. Sean Aarons, Principal of Dunoon Technical. Members of the media in Zoomland, good morning once more. My name is Darian Henry, and I will be moderating today's update on Transformation Jamaica. The Education Transformation Oversight Committee will provide the nation with a comprehensive update on all transformation activities. This as the Ministry of Education has intensified strategic planning efforts to ensure its activities and policy direction align with the Jamaica Education Transformation Commission report. Before we go into the meat of the matter, we will now break for the national anthem, and then we return to the normal programming. Thank you. On the program this morning are two key updates. The first will come from Dr. Adrian Stokes, the chairman of the committee, and then thereafter the other update will come from the Minister of Education. First, we're going to be hearing from Dr. Stokes.
Honorable Minister, senior leaders from the Ministry of Education, principals, ladies and gentlemen, persons online, good morning. This is our third press conference on the implementation of the recommendations from the Jamaica Education Transformation Committee of 2021, otherwise called the Patterson Report. The Education Transformation Oversight Committee, or ETOC for short, continues to be guided by the effective monitoring and implementation of the recommendations from the Patterson Report. As a committee, we recognize the vast responsibility we have assumed towards ensuring that the nation is kept abreast of the work that is currently being done by the Ministry of Education to implement the recommendations of the Patterson Report. The appointment of ETOC to oversee the implementation of the Patterson Report signifies that as a country, we are very serious about solving the implementation deficit that many good national initiatives suffer from. As a country, we can't be satisfied with the return on investment in education. And that's why there is this deliberate and strategic effort to transform what currently obtains. And as I have stated before in other fora, there is no long-term solution to crime and our perennial low levels of GDP growth until we fundamentally improve educational outcomes in Jamaica. In a complex, ambiguous, and volatile world, a high base level of human capital is a necessary ingredient to attract long-term financial capital that will materially boost economic growth. So the education transformation effort that is ongoing is vital to our country and our key strategic objective of improving the lives of Jamaicans. And there might be different views, different perspectives on the best ways or initiatives to transform our education system. Notwithstanding these different perspectives, we should not engage in endless debates that seek perfect solutions. The initiatives that are being pursued will unambiguously improve educational outcomes in Jamaica. So the focus of the country should be on ensuring we have the leadership, systems, and processes to implement the initiatives. And that is of material interest to us at ETOC, ensuring that the Ministry of Education has the capacity and the support to implement the recommendations in a timely and indeed a sustainable way. So for this period, we are reporting the following, and I want to contextualize or remind you of the key building blocks that have been put in place. So at our last press conference, we highlighted 4 key building blocks that are very, very important to lay a solid foundation for the implementation effort. The first one is the finalization of an implementation plan. And by an implementation plan, I'm speaking of a logical blueprint to implement the recommendations. Keep in mind that the Patterson report lays out various recommendations. So there had to be a fair amount of work to transform recommendations into initiatives that are implementable. So that's the first key building block. The second building block is the finalization of a monitoring and evaluation framework, which is basically a broad-based accountability framework that will allow ETOC to track progress of the implementation effort in a fairly scientific way. The third building block is the completion of a multi-period budget to implement the transformation plan. And the fourth building block is to put in place or begin to improve the capacity of the Ministry of Education to lead the drive to transform our education system. And one of the key deliverables there as it relates to capacity building at the ministry is to strengthen its leadership team with the hiring of a chief transformation officer to lead the day-to-day transformation activities. So these are the 4 key building blocks that we discussed and will form the substance of what we report today. So for this period, ETOC is reporting significant implementation of the 4 key building blocks that I have just highlighted. Specifically, the Mona School of Business has completed work on an implementation plan and also should I say, a broad-based monitoring and evaluation framework has also been finalized. Importantly, the Ministry of Education has also completed a multi-year budget that gives us a good sense, or at least a high-level assessment of what the transformation effort will cost us over, I would say, the next 8 to 10 years. And this is really where the rubber hits the road in terms of our commitment to transformation as a country. What kind of budgetary support will we provide to the education transformation effort? So we have a good idea. Significant work has been done in arriving at a ballpark figure for education transformation. And I should hasten to point out that it is not always about finding additional financial resources to fund education or to fund the transformation effort. But it will require what I would call a pragmatic approach that assesses the effectiveness of current programs and to assess the effectiveness or the return on investment of these existing programs. And where those programs are found to be wanting, then a common sense reallocation will need to be done. The minister will speak more fulsomely on the specific approach that will be taken to finalize the budget with Cabinet. Importantly, the Ministry of Education, as I indicated before, has recruited an experienced professional in Dr. Faith Alexander to fill the role of Chief Transformation Officer, another key building block. We spoke about it at length at our previous engagement with the public. And as I indicated before, I'm happy that this important deliverable has been completed. Dr. Alexander brings a wealth of relevant experience to the leadership team at the Ministry of Education and will be instrumental to the transformation effort. So these are key accomplishments that lay the foundation or building blocks for a sustainable implementation program. I would like to say at least two more things. So while my update today focuses on the implementation of key building blocks for the transformation effort, there's a lot of work taking place. A lot is going on within the ministry to drive broad-based implementation of the recommendations. So for example, in the early childhood education area, that's a key pillar or focus priority. And I won't say too much because the minister will speak fulsomely on broadly what's happening with work that is ongoing. But I just wanted to highlight that notwithstanding the meticulous approach that is being taken to complete building blocks, to lay the foundation, there is a fair amount of agility with the transformation process in the sense that work is actually ongoing with the implementation of at least some of the recommendations. Importantly, notwithstanding the material progress that has been made to date, ETOC notes key opportunities or areas where the ministry can enhance the implementation effort. First, and there are three opportunities that we have highlighted here. The first is the pace of execution. And this is something that we spoke on at the previous press conference. There is a need to improve or increase the speed of execution of key initiatives. And I suspect that as the ministry strengthens the leadership team and add key resources in key areas, this is something that they will come to grips with. The second area that we have identified for or identified as an area for improvement or an opportunity that the ministry can grasp is to execute a robust communication plan that will provide not just timely but precise updates to the public on the transformation effort and do it in an ongoing way. Importantly, a communication plan that provides a broad vision of what success looks like with key milestones highlighted along the way. In other words, to connect the dots for the Jamaican people. That's very, very important, to paint a compelling vision of the future of what transformation in education looks like. What is it that we're working towards? And the communication plan should translate that in a very clear way to the Jamaican people. The third area for improvement, and I've touched on it throughout my discussion today, is the continuing the effort to strengthen the leadership pool and the resources at the ministry to drive the implementation plan. Implementation is difficult. In many places, in the private sector, public sector, it's hard to implement change. It takes a lot to move things. And a necessary condition is to have the right people to drive the change, to drive the implementation. People who are, importantly, resilient. People who are agile in terms of how they think. People who are willing to collaborate effectively to get things done. And that's what it's going to take. And there's a good team, but the work to be done is a lot. It's very complex. So it will require our best people. And to succeed on this path will require getting our best people working in transformation. So these are some of the key opportunities or key areas the ministry can improve to ensure the transformation effort is successful. For ETOC, going forward, we hope to have a set cadence or schedule to update the public on the progress of the implementation plan. So the idea is that we will be reporting on a quarterly basis. The fact that the important building blocks are now in place, a monitoring and evaluation framework. We have benchmarks, we have set milestones along the way, should now give us at least a good basis to report in a very direct way on the progress of the transformation effort. Before I close, let me acknowledge all ETOC members. The committee continues to contribute to the overall push to improve governance around the transformation effort. And I want to thank all the committee members, all ETOC committee members who are very, very dedicated and have been working very, very hard and assiduously to improve governance around implementation. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and I look forward to your questions later on this morning.
Thank you, Dr. Stokes, Chairman of the committee, giving material updates on the key building blocks of implementation. And now we're going to be hearing from the Honourable Minister. She'll be providing a broad-based update on education transformation efforts. Minister?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good morning, everyone. I know with us we have some important persons here this morning, the form of our principals. But let me acknowledge Mrs. Maureen Dwyer, Acting Permanent Secretary, Dr. Kassan Troop, our Chief Education Officer, senior managers and other members of the team of the Ministry of Education and Youth, most of whom are online. Let me acknowledge as well Dr. Faith Morrison-Alexander, Chief Transformation Officer, and to welcome members of the Secretariat. We do have Ms. Lamont, the project lead, with us here this morning as well. Let me acknowledge all our students who are online, our teachers, and to say a special good morning to Principal Jones of Mona High School, who's here with us, Vice Principal James from Clancarty, Principal Myrie from Kingston College, and Principal Abrams from Dunoon. Thank you so much for gracing you with your presence. And let me, of course, acknowledge Dr. Adrian Stokes, Chairman, Education Transformation Oversight Committee, and other members of the committee. And to say thank you for leading us off this morning. And I'll pick up from where you've left off. But to say, it is my utmost pleasure to update on what we're doing inside education to cause transformation to take root in the education sector. Dr. Stokes talked about providing a broad vision with key milestones to help Jamaicans connect the dots. And so this morning, I want to start there. At its core, transformation implies a departure from the familiar and a journey towards something new and different. As many of us know, because we may have been on our own transformation journey, transformation often involves challenging existing paradigms, letting go of limiting beliefs, and embracing new possibilities. Transformation is also not a linear process, meaning it does not happen in a straight line, but is a dynamic and ongoing journey. It may involve periods of discomfort, uncertainty, and struggle as we move away from old patterns and embrace new ways of being. Transformation requires openness, vulnerability, and a willingness to explore uncharted territories. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the journey we are on as a people, because even if we don't have children in the education sector currently, meaning we're not parents, the children who are journeying through the education sector now and in the years ahead are the ones that will largely determine the course of this country. As Dr. Stokes said as well, businesses in Jamaica know they have to continually transform in order to remain in business. So too must the education sector in order to remain relevant. So for education, all of us, not just the people who work in the sector, or parents, or students, or teachers, or administrators, or principal, staff on the school compound, from watchmen all the way along the chain, or transport operators who take children to and from school, or musicians, the media, all of us Jamaicans must see ourselves as responsible for and a part of this education transformation journey. So the vision I would like all of us to carry in our minds about education transformation is that everything we do is to enable all of our children, every single one of them, to be fully bright. And I'm embracing that term. Fully bright academically, no exception. Able to read at their grade level or higher, no exception. Able to understand what they read at their grade level or higher, no exception. We know that reading is the most important building block, the cornerstone of transforming the education sector. Transformation also means having what we call the 21st century skills: critical thinking, critical reasoning, creativity and creative thinking, problem solving, a problem solving mindset as well. We want our students to be aware of their thought processes. We want them to have good communication skills and to be the citizens that we all know and want them to be. We want all of our students to aspire to contribute to nation building. So we want a transformed education sector to be graduating students who excel in the behaviors we want to see: kindness, honesty, empathy, and concern for others, not prone to violence at the slightest trigger. We want the students that the education sector produces to embrace all that is good about Jamaica and reject the antisocial behavior. So everything we do in education transformation is with that vision in mind, to have children who are fully bright, whose aim is to be at the front of the class. And let me acknowledge Dr. Andre MacDonald for helping to propagate this concept across the entire education sector and to put it to music. So last time we had a press conference on education transformation. We talked about the 7 pillars of transformation. And just to remind you, sorry, I know it speaks to governance. I can't read. Do you have a printer? The early childhood sector. It speaks to technology, teaching. Do you want to? Teaching curriculum. I'm sorry, I don't have the script in front of me. And teacher training. Tertiary sector. TVET. Technology and infrastructure. And finance. We also reported at the last time that work had commenced on 5 of the 7 pillars. Today, I can say that all 7 work is happening on all 7 pillars at different stages, including TVET and financing of tertiary. But for today's presentation, I want to focus on the early childhood sector. I want to focus on infrastructure and technology. So in starting with the early childhood sector, I believe all Jamaicans recognize that sector as the building blocks. So the Jamaica Education Transformation Report calls on us to rapidly modernize the early childhood sector, to accommodate more children at an earlier age, and to ensure that the children who transition through the early childhood sector to primary school, that they are getting there and they're at primary school level in terms of their development. This is very much in sync with what the education sector has been doing. Over the last several years, there's been a focus on creating more brain builder centers so that children who are less than 3 years old can be in an environment that encourages brain development. And we know that brain development in our children happens out of everyday experiences, relationships, and the care that our children receive in the early years. So by providing that environment for them in their early years and engaging with them through reading, talking, and playtime, we will have a great influence on their early development. So where we stand now, and from where you can measure us going forward, the number of brain builder centers has increased to 127, with 30 additional centers targeted for this fiscal year. We added 7 infant departments to existing primary schools and created 6 standalone infant schools. And we are ramping up our training, our trained teacher program in early childhood institutions to help us to get to that ratio of 1 trained practitioner to 10 students. We have discovered the significant factor preventing many of our early childhood institutions from being certified is this ratio of 1 to 10 students. So while we are seeing an increase in the number of early childhood institutions granted permission to operate, or push towards certification, or push towards helping these early childhood institutions to get to full certification, we will need to deploy more trained practitioners in them. That is the plan. So on the slide you'll see that 86% of our ECIs were granted permission to operate in our last financial year. A total of 302 early childhood institutions have been issued certificates of registration. Applications are at a high, but the important thing that will move the needle in the early childhood sector is the ratio of trained practitioners to 10 students. And that is where our focus has to be for the early childhood sector. On the next slide, we go into greater details for the early childhood sector. And actually, I touched on some of them already in terms of the upskilling, streamlining and implementing early screening, identification, and referral pathways. We are doing this, and I'm happy to report that we have completed already the early screening for this cohort of 4-year-olds in our early childhood institutions. And so we know what level they are, and we will be using the next 2 years while they are there to ensure that they are properly prepared for primary school. The Jamaica Education Transformation Report also calls on us to invest significantly more in uplifting the quality of our schools' infrastructure. And while we're doing that, it calls on us as well to include green building strategies that will make use of all the sunshine we have to produce energy, to run our schools, to cool our classrooms. Because I can't tell you how many times visitors have gone to our schools and they've come back to say, boy, the classrooms are hot. How can the children learn? And I see our principals shaking their heads, agreeing. So it is not beyond us as we seek to improve significantly, uplift the infrastructure quality in our schools, to build in cooling for our classrooms. Because we know that if our children are not in a comfortable environment, if our children and our teachers, they're not going to be maximizing the learning that should be happening. The report also calls on us to ensure that we continue to provide access for those students with disabilities and to improve not only the classrooms, but the facilities for our teachers and staff. And when we look at the costing of transformation, the largest percentage of that cost will be in infrastructure uplifting at our schools. And I know across Jamaica, our teachers are nodding. They are agreeing with us in terms of this focus as well. The report also calls on us to invest more in technology. You know, there are many negatives that happened to us while we were in COVID, but the one big positive was our use and embrace of technology. And if we were crawling before COVID in terms of enabling our schools with technology, today I can say we are sprinting to enable our schools. It's devices for students and teachers. It's connectivity in the infrastructure in schools that will also support our push to make our schools safer as we install security cameras. It's the robust coding in schools program that we have started, and we've seen almost 1,000 teachers already trained. We know the world is moving towards using more technology to make life easier. Jamaicans cannot afford to be left behind. Our children cannot afford to be left behind. And so, ladies and gentlemen, the themes for focus this morning: early childhood sector, technology, and infrastructure are big themes. And as we report to you on a quarterly basis, we'll give you more details in terms of our accomplishments in all the pillars of transformation. There are 295 recommendations in the report. So we can't report on all of them all at once. We have to break it down into bite-sized amounts so that they can be absorbed by the Jamaican public, so that they are able to interrogate and understand where we are. So this morning, if we've only looked at early childhood, at technology, and at infrastructure, it's because of the significance when we look at the report, the significance of the spend that we have to do, the significance of the contribution of those to transforming education. But I want to again remind you that work is apace on all 7 pillars. These were just our focused pillars this morning. And to also remind you that transformation is a journey that encompasses not only students and teachers, but also all of society. And that's why we want to take you along. We want to ensure, and I fully endorse what Dr. Stokes said in terms of the ministry having a robust communications program, not just at these press conferences, but in between, all along, giving you insights into what we are accomplishing so that you can follow along with us and that you can begin to see the transformation alive and well. Again, towards that aim of producing children who are fully bright, children who are anxious to be at the front of the class, excited to be at the front of the class, children who are creative, who have a creative mindset, children who want to read, children who, when they read, understand what they read. These are some of the things we want you to begin to see, but it begins with the understanding of where we are now, what is the vision, and how we move forward. Communicating that to you in a comprehensive, concise way is going to be a strength or a skill that we have to develop here at the ministry. So ladies and gentlemen, these are my thoughts, my remarks for this morning, and I look forward to any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. Ladies and gentlemen, we've heard two very important updates from Dr. Stokes and Minister Williams. The floor is now going to be open for questions, or the platform is now going to be open for questions. I'm going to be inviting members of the media to pose questions to the team. Please use the raise hand feature, identify yourself and your media house, and you can go ahead to pose your questions once you are identified. Can I have the Zoom platform on the screen, please, so I can see who it is that's posing questions? Thanks. Okay, all right. I'll take Chanel. Chanel, go ahead.
Hi, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, go right ahead.
Oh, hi, I'm Chanel Spence from the Jamaica Information Service. I just wanted to know if probably Minister is able to say the estimated budgetary allocation for the implementation plan at this time.
I take it that you're asking about the specifics of the cost of the budget, the overall budget. I am sure by the next time we come back to you, we will be able to give you the specifics of the budget. It's completed, but we have to allow Cabinet to see it, to discuss it before we give the specifics of the number. As you can tell by the transformation report, the budget is going to be significant over a number of years, but in terms of the specifics, we will announce what that is after Cabinet has been able to look at it and to interrogate it.
Thank you very much, Chanel. We have another hand that is raised, identified as Zoom user. You can go ahead, open the microphone, please identify yourself and your media house.
Hi, good morning. I'm Jamila Maitland from TVJ. Sorry about the handle. Minister, can we get a ballpark figure, please, as what the chairman said about the budget? Are you able to speak roughly any estimation instead of the specifics? And two, the last time, we had a press conference like this, I know that the post of the chief technical officer, I think that's the name of the position, that was outstanding. I'm aware that the person has been engaged, Mrs. Alexander. Can we hear from her, and what are the priorities that she will be leading or focusing on during this time or during the next quarter?
All right, again, in terms of the budget, we will come back to you after our Cabinet has looked at the work that has been done on the budget. We will come back with greater details of that budget shortly. With regards to our Chief Transformation Officer, yes, Mrs. Alexander, Faith Morrison Alexander, has been hired, as was announced by the chairman. Her priorities will be the priorities that are set that I enunciated just now. Everybody's focus in the ministry will be on the 7 pillars of transformation. That I can't think of anything else that we're doing in the ministry that would not roll up into one of those pillars. The implementation report that was done, helping us to prioritize the pillars. And I talked about 3 of them this morning: the early childhood sector, infrastructure, and technology. And so those are the priorities, and all our efforts will be geared around those as we go forward.
All right, thank you very much, Minister. Thank you, Jamila. Are there any other questions from the press corps? Any other questions? There seem not to be any other questions, Minister. I'd invite you for closing remarks.
So let me thank everyone for being here this morning. Thanks to the chairman. I know he has been working very closely with us here at the ministry to get to this point. Going forward, he will assume more of a monitoring role as we report, and he will be able to tell you with greater precision, probably using percentage completion as to where we are on all of the 7 pillars of transformation. Let us thank the team at the Ministry of Education and Youth, led by our Acting Permanent Secretary, Mrs. Maureen Dwyer, the Secretariat that has come on board. There's a lot of work to be done to get out into our schools, to engage with our students and our teachers, to help them to understand, to unpack all of the recommendations in the report. It's a weighty report, almost 300 recommendations. A lot of conversations will be happening as we commence the new school year, just so that there will be increased understanding and awareness of what is required of us as we continue on the transformation journey. Let me thank all our principals who are here with us this morning, and to say to them, you will be seeing way more of us in your schools as we come to speak with you as well, because you are at the forefront of transformation in your respective schools. You have to help us with the implementation of all these recommendations as well. Thank you to the media for being here. You continue to help us to carry the good news about the education sector, and we appreciate that. To our PR and communications team, thank you as well. To our moderator, thank you for moderating this morning. Dr. Troop and all the members of the Ministry of Education, thank you so much. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's a wrap. Have a wonderful day. And, sorry, Dr. True? No, that hand was raised already. That's why. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great day. God bless you all. Thank you. Okay.